Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, life coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is David Nurse. David, there you go. Yes, let's do the cheering. All right. David is an NBA mindset coach, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and top 50 worldwide motivational speaker. And David and I are going to be talking today on the topic, unlocking your full potential, overcoming the enemy of inaction. How many of you know that you got to do it? David has a book by that name, but, Nike first started it. Just do it. Welcome, David.
Hey, it's an honor to be on here. Thank you so much, Mirna, for allowing me to come on and have a great mindset conversation today.
Yes, mindset. It is extremely important. So we're going to be covering that topic today. But let me give you an introduction to David. David Nurse has been transforming the way NBA stars play on the court. Corporate executives dominate in the boardroom for the past 15 years. David is widely known as one of the top mindset specialists in the entire world. He has written 3 best-selling mindset books, runs a transformational coaching business, and is a highly sought-after speaker, hired by Fortune 100 companies and professional sports teams. He helps thousands of employees and athletes develop unshakable mindsets. In fact, he was recently named one of the top 50 keynote speakers in the world by Real Leaders. As a former professional basketball player, David's ability to get into the zone and master his mindset led him to 2 Guinness World Records. In 2016, the Brooklyn Nets hired him as a coach to help players improve their shooting. They went from being 28 in the league to second overall in 3-point shooting. Yay. In total, David has worked with over 150 NBA players whose contract earnings amount to $3.2 billion. His books, Pivot and Go, a #1 bestseller, Breakthrough, the most immersive book ever written on taking action, and Do It, the life-changing power of taking action, a #1 Amazon bestseller and Wall Street Journal bestseller. These books have helped hundreds of thousands throughout the world unlock their personal roadblocks and take action in their life. As one recent All-Star NBA and NBA champion player put it, David is the guy that everyone needs to hire. So after my conversation with him, you guys ran out and hired him, right? So that he can get your teams in the zone. Awesome. All right. So David, I want to dive right into this mindset thing. So as I read in your bio, you are a 3 times best-selling author. Do It, the life-changing power of taking action. Breakthrough, a surefire guide to realizing your potential. Push through limitations and achieving things you didn't know were possible. And Pivot and Go, the 29-day blueprint to redefine and achieve your success. The common thread in all your books is mindset. Why do you think mindset is so important to our success?
It's a phenomenal question. And first off, thank you for the great introduction, Mirna, that you just like making my head big over here. Like, wow, that actually sounds really cool when you step back and think about it. Did I really do that stuff? It's honestly, I just have to say, it's all blessings and God providing those opportunities. But mindset is so important because really when you break down the simple, now think about this in life. Life starts off simple. When you're a kid, you're just playing. You don't have worries, stresses, anxieties. But as you get older, get into a job, into relationships, everything becomes so complicated. But if you peel back the layers of the onion of life, it actually is very simple. And it just comes down to perspective, how you view each situation. You can't take it all in once. It's just step by step. It's like taking a step forward with a flood lamp where you can only see a little bit in front of you. You can't see the whole picture, but understanding that every opportunity, every obstacle that comes, it's just how you look at it. There's two sides to every coin, and if you make the decision, the superhero power of choice that we all wake up with, how we view a situation, that's your mindset. That's your decision of how enjoyable life's going to be. We've all been around the people who complain about everything, and they're like chameleons, where whatever the situation and circumstances, they rise and fall with it. But we've also been around those people that we want to be like, the people who, no matter what happens, they're a rock, they're consistent, they're the same day in and day out with a joyful mindset. So I think mindset is it can be very complicated, and there's a lot that we can dive into, and there's a ton of tools to use. But overall, it's very simple. It's how do you view the current present situation you are in right here, right now?
Yeah. So as a mindset coach for athletes, I mean, before we go into, because everything is, you can transition, whether it's mindset on the court, mindset in the boardroom, like you said. So let's stick with the sports for a while, because I never played professional sports or any sport, but let's say I'm thinking that how would a mindset help someone go from, let's take Michael Jordan, the one that I know. Right? When he got into the league, he was benched because, nobody thought he was good. Or even Tom Brady, I know him too, where he was scrawny as a kid. And actually, now that I started to talk, I'm thinking of all these, and I just finished looking at Stephen Curry biography. And of course, that's a perfect one to look at mindset. He's a little scrawny little kid, and everybody is counting him out because he's tiny, he's small. And then he starts playing, and what he said to himself is, I'm just good at these guys. I just need to grow a little more, fatten myself up. So tell us about how that kind of mindset helps you go from everybody is counting you out to being the top of your game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting to see these top athletes to ever play their sports. A lot of them were counted out, or they were underestimated. And it's actually one of the archetypes in Do It, the life-changing power of taking action, that I talk about, because we are either people who say, and there's only two camps to this. You're someone who says, why me? Why could I be the best at what I'm doing? Why do I deserve a great life? And a lot of people will fall into that. Or you're in the camp of MJ, Tom Brady, Steph Curry, that say, well, why not me? Somebody has to be the best quarterback. Somebody has to be the best basketball player. Why not me? So it all starts with our self-perception of where our ceiling of quote unquote potential is. Now, potential, what it actually means is absolutely nothing. Potential is just the limitations we place upon ourselves and the limitations that others place on us and we allow to keep us bogged down. So it's great that you brought up Curry as this example. As I give this example in talks and I show this slide, when Steph Curry was coming out of college, his scouting report, and just Google search this, you'll just start laughing. It said, undersized, not quick enough, probably will be a backup, will be lucky to even play in the NBA. And he goes on to transcend the way an entire sport is played, which didn't shoot as many threes until Steph Curry came to it. He literally took a sport that's been going on for years and changed the way it was played. Think about that. So if he would have thought, okay, this NBA scout who gets paid a lot of money said that I can only be this, then, he must be right because he knows me better than me. No. The one thing you have to understand is you are the foregone expert in you. Nobody knows you better than you know you. But we put these limitations upon ourselves because we think, well, I just don't deserve it, or there's got to be somebody else better than me. And one of the greatest mindsets as we bring it back to these professional athletes is just this unshakable confidence is what I call it. It doesn't matter what happens. Steph Curry, if he misses 15 shots, this is very important. If he misses 15 shots, his 16th shot, he is not hesitating.
Yes.
He is not doubting himself. He's taking that thing like he's made 15 shots. And you might think, well, he's an NBA player. He should do that. No. I've worked with a ton of them. Most of them, if they miss a shot, they're hesitating on their next one. They're looking over to the bench. Oh, is coach going to take me out? Oh, it doesn't matter how high a level you are, whether it's in the boardroom. I was just in some CEO staff meetings up in Montreal with a company that I consult for, a massive company. And I could tell people were afraid to speak up and say something when they had on their mind because they were hesitant that what they said might not be the right thing and they'd get scorned for it. So they're not going to perform to their highest level at any time if you have this type of hesitation, fear holding you back. So the ultimate for any athlete is how to get them to step on the court, on the field with unshakable confidence, no matter what storm comes their way. Jordan was great at that. Kobe was great at that. Steph, all the greatest, Tom Brady, they don't care. They look at obstacles as opportunities. And that's the game changer.
Actually, that's a big one right there. Obstacles as opportunities. I know that, Michael Jordan said, when you told me I can't do something, that's when I'm going to prove to you that I'm going to do it. And that's basically how he transitions by thinking. But like I said, I watched that documentary and, Steph Curry was, he doubted himself for a little bit. He wanted to go to a school. They looked at him and says, nah, whatever. So you had to pick the one school that accepted him. But one of the things the reason they accepted him is because they did see him play and really bomb, and he just kept playing. and we see that now, you're right, where he misses a couple of threes or something and he just kept going. You're right. Missed 15 and the 16. But we've also seen that happen where people have lost their confidence, where they missed, I think, the Heat, what was happening with Butler. He missed a couple, lost his confidence, and was a no-show. And you're right. Steph Curry has got that mindset. So how does someone get a mindset like that? What do you think happened for him to get that kind of a mindset?
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to care about the last 15 shots. I'm only going to care about what's coming in front of me, or however that works. Yeah.
And let's break this down. I've been blessed to work with players who have attributed to 29 NBA All-Star appearances. So I did basically, just a survey study kind of my own of what these tendencies that these all-star players have, and I narrowed it down to 3 main aspects that all these players hit. The all-star mindset is what I call it. And the first one being understanding and double downing on your elite strength. So Steph Curry, will use it as an example. He knows his strength is shooting. He's not trying to be somebody that he's not. He's not trying to be a post player. He's not trying to be a slasher. When you have a God-given strength, understanding what that is, and then doubling down on it so hard, practicing it at hyper speed training that's even more than a game is. You can't just shoot around casually because the game is so much faster. I call it overtraining. I worked with the player Kyle Korver, who I grew up with in a small town of Iowa. He went on to be one of the top NBA three-point shooters in NBA history. He is not athletic, can't play any defense, can hardly dribble the basketball, but he could shoot it. And that's all he worked on. So when you have a strength, don't try to make all your weaknesses to an average level. You have different people in your life that you can put into place, like a Formula One race car driver. You drive the car. You have somebody else that does the lug nuts, the tires, the gas. You don't have to do everything. But what you are gifted at, you have to do great. So that's the first thing. Steph understood this. The second one is insatiable drive. Now, what I talk about with basketball players is there's a difference. I can tell if they have the opportunity to be great by this alone. It's, do I drag them to the gym to practice, or do they drag me to the gym to practice? And I'll tell you this quick story. It's a great one. I used to do NBA pre-draft. So this is for the young players out of college who are preparing for the NBA. In these workouts, the first one, we would always try to just crush them, crush their soul, show them how hard it's going to be in these workouts. And most guys would be passed out afterwards, laying in sweat on the ground. They wouldn't want to move. I had this kid come in from Kentucky. He wasn't very highly recruited. And, they were talking about maybe late first round, probably second. And he was this gangly, skinny kid, just, fun guy to be around. But that first workout just gave it to him. He was sweating. We went 2 hours, just so hardcore. And at the end of it, he comes up to me right after, when most people are sitting down or sucking air. He says, "Coach, when are we going tonight?" And I was like, oh man, this guy's different. Okay. He loves it. And from every day, he wore me out. We did 2-a-days every day because he loved being in the gym. It wasn't me dragging him to the gym. He was dragging me. So he loved the practice. He loved the unseen hours when the lights weren't on. This player, his name is Shea Alexander. He's a top 5 first team all NBA point guard, the top point guard in the NBA right now. He signed a multi 250 million plus contract.
It's so beautiful.
Incredible.
I don't know him, but that is beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
If people follow,
if people follow the NBA, they'll know who he is. It's because of that. So we have knowing your elite strengths and doubling down, insatiable drive. Do you love the practice more than just the game? And the last one is relentless consistency in any situation. Kind of like we alluded to in the start. Are you consistent with your habits? Are you consistent with the plan you're on? Are you consistent with your training, no matter what's going on? There's so many excuses that you can make. And the majority of people, we don't have others that will call us out on those excuses. If you say, you know what? Oh, they said there was going to be a hurricane in Los Angeles and it just ended up raining a little bit. So of course I couldn't go to the gym for 3 days. Yes. And no one's going to say, they're just going to let it slide. So relentless consistency also goes a step further for people outside of the NBA and people in the NBA of your character. How do you show up every day? How do you show up for the people around you, your teammates, your family, your friends, people in your life? Are you consistent in who you are no matter what the situation is? Because situations and circumstances, they will always change. You are either in a fire currently or there's a fire coming up ahead. Can you remain?
You just left one, right?
Or you just left one. There's a fire around. Can you dance in that fire? Those are the 3 main things that I see stand out that give these NBA players and just anyone in life an elite mindset.
That is absolutely very true. And as you were talking, my brain was going to the, I dabble in sports, meaning that my husband watches it, and I watch them, and there's some people that I love, like Curry and Tom Brady and whatever. But I know that when you were talking, because I've listened to Michael Jordan's story, I've listened to Kobe's story. Obviously, I know Steph Curry's story right now. And you're right. All 3 of these guys, everybody would talk about Kobe. I think he was the worst one. Kobe is on the court, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I remember him saying one time that he wanted to be part of the gang. So he would go hang out with those guys and they would go drinking until 5 in the morning. And then Kobe would be knocking on their door and say, hey, we got to go practice. And they're thinking, well, we just came in.
Oh, that's him, man.
You heard that story, right?
Yeah, I've heard that story. I know players who have been very close to him. They've told me, I've got so many Kobe stories that you would just be like, every time his jaw dropped of his mindset and his drive was crazy.
Yes, right. And he wanted to be the best, so relentless. I love it. So excellent. So we're off to a rocking start. Now I want to go through your books and pick out a little bit of each so that we can talk about. Now, in your book, Pivot and Go, you offer a 29-day plan for living your absolute best life. Can you give us a couple of those, maybe like 2 days out of the 29 days?
Yeah.
Or the 2 top big ones?
Yeah, this one's near and dear to my heart. The first book is always, it's like your baby, and you've grown so much from writing it, but it's a fun adventure. And it's set up on 29 days because 28 days is the generally accepted number for creating a habit. And there's so much talk about habits and Atomic Habits, great book. And habits and routines are awesome, but day 29 is your choice to make it a lifestyle. Lifestyles win out over habits. You can have habits, and then if you don't make it a lifestyle, those are gone, right? Hence the Biggest Loser TV show. So 29 days, there are 29 mindset tools. And these are ways to shift your perspective. A pivot. I had pivot going before 2020. I wrote this in 2019 before everybody started saying pivot.
Pivoting, right?
It's a basketball term. It's a basketball term when the defense is all over you and you just slightly turn. Not a big change. Big changes are daunting and drastic for people. It's a small turn, shift in perspective that opens up an entire new horizon ahead. So an example of one of the tools is one that I use every day. I call it the mental dictatorship 17 seconds. So your brain, now I did studies on this through 12 years of training NBA players. I would bring a stopwatch with me. And anytime it seemed like, they just didn't have it. They didn't want to work out that day. Those days you go to the gym and you're like, oh, I just want to go back home. It takes your mind I would start
low energy, right?
It takes your mind 17 seconds to overcome that feeling. After the first 17 seconds of suck, or what people call eating the frog. I never really got that. I don't really like the taste of frogs. Why do you have to do that? So I do 17 seconds and I start off every day in an ice cold shower. The first 17 seconds, I hate it. I never look forward to it. But after that, I could go for 5-10 minutes if I wanted to. So it shows me, it's a reminder daily, these daily habits that, hey, it's at 17 seconds. If there's something I don't want to do, 17 seconds. Usually when I get on stage to speak, like I'm nervous, but it only takes 17 seconds till I'm like, okay, I'm good. We can go.
Nice.
And it's a great reminder to have. And also works on the flip side when people will say, you know what, I just can't stop snacking. And you know what trick to do? Put it somewhere 17 seconds away. Take 17 seconds to get into that lock above your refrigerator, do the code to get to the chips or cookies that you don't want to eat. So if you make it inaccessible for 17 seconds, it works on the flip side. So there's a bunch of mindset tools and fun ones like the treasure map, where you have, you pick your vision of where, like your mission, your vision, not goals. Goals are just mile markers and compass directional pointers to lead you towards your ultimate vision. So just like in the movies where there's a treasure, they can't just go straight to the treasure. They got these X's, different spots on the map. So these are mile markers to lead you to that ultimate vision. So if I made the transition, I wanted to be the top motivational speaker. Now I couldn't just step on the biggest stages in the biggest companies right away. I had to speak on smaller stages. I had to speak for free. I had to do Zoom talk. I had to make a speaking. There's so many little X's, and I'm still on that progression to get there. But Tony Robbins, I'm coming for you.
I like it. You heard that challenge, Tony? Now he's got a partner, Dean Graziosi. So you got to come from.
Oh, I know Dean very well. Great guy.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And one of the reasons I love, having great conversation is that when someone is talking, my mind takes me to, it unlocks something that I've heard before. And what you were just talking about, it reminded me of listening to Kevin Hart talk about how he became successful, how he had to plan his comedy. And you're right. You go into little dive places and you do your lines and you check to see if there's going to be crickets when you do it, how you plan your jokes and how you build. And that would be almost like the perfect one, because you're right. Some people, if they've got a name, they can start off by being on the big stages and charge $200,000 or whatever, because they already got a name. But when you're building your name, you've got to go through those dive bars, and you've got to be working for free, and you've got to be doing all the things that you said, but you are, you hope to get lucky. Or even Tyler Perry. Oh, Tyler Perry has got a good story about what he was doing until he got really lucky.
Yeah.
to push that over the edge, right? You know his story.
But it's interesting, and you say luck, but if you give yourself so many opportunities and take so many shots,
Yes.
eventually it's going to happen. And I'm a big believer on that. If you have a mission and a vision, you will reach it. Now, it might be different than you actually have it planned out in a different way,
Right.
but I believe that like if you're following God's calling for your life, you're gonna eventually reach it if you don't give up. And
Right.
it's so funny too, Mirna. Like I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, and it's just so, like I said, it comes back to so simple. At the end, it's so simple of just not giving up, the skill of not giving up. And if you look at the title of my book, and this will be just for people that are able to watch it, it says
Mm-hmm.
do it, but you can see the outline of don't quit. You see
Ah,
that?
on the
Don't
back,
quit.
right?
So
Yes,
the
yes,
reason
yes.
that that's so powerful is people learn in two different ways. They either learn from the motivation and the positive forward push, go do it, or they learn from the not wanting to have a life of regret where it's
Mhm.
don't quit.
Don't
So
quit.
it's interesting. Like these people that we see when they break the
Right.
surface.
Break the
We don't
seal, right?
see Think
Mm-hmm.
about think about a flower, or even if a better example, a bamboo tree. A bamboo tree is
Mm.
underneath the
One of my
soil,
favorite ones. One of
the
my favorite
best, right?
ones. Yes,
Underneath
yes.
the soil in the
Mhm.
dark. So you're in the dark with tons of pressure on that seed. Nobody knows about that bamboo. For 5 years, it stays underneath the surface. And after 5 years, it sprouts up to one of the largest,
Yes,
most beautiful plants there is.
yes,
And that's the
yes,
examples of these Kevin Hart's, Tyler Perry's, anybody
yes,
that's
yes.
successful pretty much has that story.
I like that one. I've never actually made that connection, but I look at my life, like the bamboo tree, and I love it. You're working, you're working, you're working, you're not quitting, you're building. You build it, they will come. That's one of my mottos, and you just keep working. But I never equated it to what you just said. That's right. We never saw when they were underground and they're putting the pressure and they're just watering that seed, right, and giving it sunlight, right? But we
Yeah.
see when they break through, and the bamboo tree, if anyone is listening, it takes 5 years on the ground, but then when it breaks through, it grows incredibly fast, and it's like the tallest thing. And yeah, that's actually pretty good, because that's exactly what happened to the two that I mentioned, Tyler Perry and Kevin Hart. And the reason I remember him saying that, he says that everyone said he was a overnight success, but his overnight success took him 19 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe it's just it's a fun thing to do. Just look at backstories of people that you think rose
Mhm.
to overnight success, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, they've been doing that. Like my uncle was a first year as an NBA head coach with Toronto Raptors in 2019. First year as a head coach, he won the NBA championship. And everybody was like,
Really?
"Oh my
That
gosh,
is
he got
nice.
so lucky for rise to." He'd been a head coach for 27 years prior in small
Wow.
college, over in Belgium, over in England, over in leagues that didn't even exist, getting paid $0, popping
Wow.
popcorn at halftime as a head coach. Like people don't see that stuff.
Hmm.
And it's just the power
So
of
you've
like
got
everything
you've
being
got
below.
good role models in your family. That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, he's great.
Whatever happened to your career?
Yeah, right. My basketball career, I know. I'm still waiting for that call, Mirna. I thought, you know what, you know what's funny? Hey, I'm gonna put this out, and
Yes.
obviously, like I'm 6'2". I'm not that athletic jumping wise, but I could shoot threes. So if Steph Curry had came around a little earlier, maybe I would have had a chance.
All right, that's amazing. That's good. Hey, you know what? You can either play it or you can teach, and that's what you're doing. You're teaching.
There
All
you go.
right. Yes. All right. So today we want to talk a bit about the enemy of inaction, which I think is, so important. Your book, Do It, talks about the enemy of inaction. And you said that we have, you've identified three archetypes that are the enemy of inaction. The burned. I'm assuming that you mean that someone burned me, so I'm not going to do it.
Mhm.
The blamer, I know that one, because even this morning, I was telling my son, I said, going around blaming, it's one of the worst things that you can do, right? And then the perfectionist. I understand the blamer and the perfectionist, not so much about the burnt. So talk to us about these three archetypes that
Yeah,
are enemies
sure.
for inaction.
Great question. Great setup. So the enemy of inaction is fear. Ultimately, it is fear of uncertainty, it's fear of failure. We don't take action because we don't know what's on the other side of that action. If you were guaranteed results, you would do that, but it's uncertain. So there's actually 9 action archetypes that I outlined, and we chose the top three that are the most viable to people. So the 9, I'll just go through the 9, and as you're listening, think like, oh, well, maybe that relates to me, because the cool thing about this too is, Mirren, it's kind of like the Enneagram. That's a personality test mixed with a little atomic habit. So it's a living, changing. Enneagram is who you are as a personality. It's pretty much who you're going to be. This 9 action archetypes, if you're struggling, if you're held back, if you're stuck, you can understand why and be able to break through that and take action. So the 9 are the allodaxophobic, which is just a cool way to say fear of other people's opinions. The burned, and we'll come back to the burned. I want to definitely hit on the burned. The inopportune, which means you think you're either too old or too young, timing's just not right. The blamer, we'll talk some more about the blamer, and that's just, pointing fingers at somebody else for the situation that you're in, which most of us do at some capacity, because there's never a cross-examination jury when we're blaming somebody else. The test believer, which is kind of interesting why I put a test believer, where you think of like, oh, my Enneagram is this, or my Myers-Briggs is this. But the one that I give the best example to is when people say, David, I'm just introverted, so I can't go out and talk to people. No. Introverted and extroverted has nothing to do with can you talk to people or not. It's just how you recharge. Do you recharge by yourself, or do you recharge with others? That's the difference maker there. The 6th one is the perfectionist. And I think we're going to relate to that. A lot of people listening are high performers. So by trait of high performers, you're probably a little perfectionist in there. The 7th is the scarciest, where you think it's a scarcity mindset. There's only one slice of the pie that you feel like you just have to hold on to all you got, and you can't share anything with anybody else, because if you do, it's all going to be gone. That's very common. The 8th one is the distracted. And I don't even mean by distracted of like our phones or the notifications or all these things that we have of being constantly on in this world that we live in, but even more the distracted of knowing what your vision, your mission, your purpose is. And that's your great. The enemy of great is not bad. We know the bad choices. The enemy of great are all the shiny object goods that can get in our way. Like if I have a mission of I want to reach as many people as possible as I can through books, writing books and speaking, if I get all these opportunities of, oh, you should do this mastermind, oh, you should do this, oh, you can get that, and they're great, they're good opportunities, but they would keep me away from my great. That's the distracted. The 9th is the underestimator, like we talked about earlier briefly. You're either like, well, why me? Why do I deserve this? Or you're Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, why not me? So those are the 9. But let's break down the burned. Okay, so the burned is if something in your past, all right, the past is only, you can look at it only 2 ways. It's either a teacher, or you stay stuck in the past and you are burnt by the past. There's something that's called traumatic age regression. 70% of US adults have traumatic age regression. It means something in their past happened, which they have not forgiven that. They have not addressed that. So whenever it comes up, they stay stuck in that moment. So think about this. And I even feel this when I go back to my hometown. I still feel like, oh, it's just kind of little David, little high school David. And I feel like, kind of weird, and I can't spend that much time there. But maybe you had a rough upbringing or a bad childhood. And if you go back to that childhood home, or you think about your childhood, it brings you back to that moment. So there's tools to break through this, to first understanding what that is burning you in the past. You can even relate it to, I hear this one a lot of like, oh, I put 5 years into that relationship and I got dumped. I cannot put my heart on the line again. Yeah. Really? Because one person?
Yeah.
No, that person taught you what you actually want. that wasn't the right one, but it was to lead you to the right one. But if you stay stuck in getting burnt in that, burnt in a business deal, you're going to be stuck in that traumatic age regression. You'll never learn from it. So you can only learn from the past to apply to the present, to anticipate and look forward to the future. So that's kind of what the general inclination of the burned is. And then there's tools for each one of these action archetypes to work.
Well, that's a good one that you talked about, the burned, because you're right. That's a classic example of I was burnt once before, and I'm not going to open myself up to be burnt again. But when you were talking, I was going back to when you talked about a teacher or something telling you, oh, you're never going to make it. You're never going to be this. You're never going to be that. And you believe them in a deep subconscious level. Would that be one of the burnt things, or that's different?
No, absolutely, because that was a thing in your past that
Right.
kept you away from what you were actually called to do. And it's so funny you bring that up, because I feel like every very successful person has some type of story about this. And I was listening to a friend of mine. His name's Torrin Wells. He's a phenomenal singer and he's a great speaker. And he was talking about it, and he gave this speech in high school, and his teacher said, that's terrible. You must have plagiarized it. But it was so good that they brought him down, and he was so afraid to speak because of that. And what you have to understand is anytime somebody will say something of like that negative towards you, it's usually a reflection of what they feel inside about themselves that they're trying to transfer on you to also hold you down, aka crab in the bucket, and pull you down. And when we're that young and impressionable, it often sticks, and it's hard to negate that, but it has to be addressed. And one way that I do this, I think it'll help a lot of people, is what I call the reverse alter ego. So you might have heard of the alter ego effect. It's like Beyonce steps on stage and she's Sasha Fierce.
Right.
Different person. It works in the opposite way, that you of the past give yourself a goofy, silly name. Like I call the me of the past, who, and I just, you know what, this is funny because me and my wife were going through old Facebook messages for some reason, like when I was like 20, and I would just, the dumbest, I was saying the dumbest things. I was like, oh, that's embarrassing. But that's Little Davy. So I give my name from the past Little Davy, because you can
right.
I've separated David, who I am today, from Little Davy of the past. So if you have something of the past, give yourself a goofy, silly name that makes you laugh at it, and understand that is not who you currently are. You can separate.
That's good. Yeah. Well, the phenomenon of teachers telling kids that they're never going to be something, when I first heard it, I couldn't believe it, but you're right. It happens so often that, I would never be a teacher I've never been brought up to say stuff like that, even if I think it. But apparently these teachers and guidance counselors say these things to these kids. And I think it's absolutely horrible. And you're correct. More people than not have a story like that. And we only hear it from the successful ones, the ones that's broken through that barrier, right? But the ones that believe that, they take that all the way to, I've known some people that are coaching women in their 70s and 80s, and someone had said something to them as a child, and they still take it all the way there. Not very many people are able to overcome that.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. And you might be listening to this thinking like, oh, but the successful people have overcome it. Nah, I work with some high-powered CEOs that we have to go back to the past and figure out where we have to just, release it and let it go to be able to move forward. And these are uber successful people. So it's not just you that's suffering from this.
Yes, it's very true. Right. You always have to be careful what you say. All right, so keep going. So we talked about the burned. I think I know about the blamer and the perfectionist, but tell us about those from your point of view.
Yeah, totally. Let's jump into the perfectionist. I think this will really hit people hard. The blamer is simply somebody else is responsible for the situation that you are currently in, and it's so easy to blame on that, and there's tools for that as well. But the perfectionist is interesting because it coincides with procrastination. When you're a perfectionist, you have to have it all right. But what you have to understand is it will never be perfect. It will never be. You can strive for perfection, understanding you will never reach perfection. You'll never live a life of perfection. Jesus was the only person who was here that was perfect. Nobody else will be that way.
Yes,
And
yes,
understanding that gives
yes.
you freedom. And I tell people, like, if you want to have a laugh today, like, go back and watch, Google search, YouTube search old videos that I did for basketball camps. And I was trying to talk and promote the camps. Horrible. Like, they're terrible, man. You would laugh. My first podcast that I did, brutal. Like, just was going nowhere. I had no idea how to do them. But if I waited till it was all perfect, I would have never done it in the
Started.
first
Right,
place.
right,
It's the
right.
only way that you can learn. It's the ready, fire, aim. You're not ready, aim, fire. You ready, fire, aim, and you go back and adjust. And one of the mindsets and tools that I use for this is the 90% theory. So, when you're told go 100%, go 100, focus 100%. If you put so much focus and impetus on the 100%, you already get into a term that's called pressing, where you're trying too hard. So even with athletes, when you try too hard, when you try to aim the basketball in the hoop, you don't make the shot. But when you work out of 90%, when you're focused and allowing your natural abilities, aka flow, to come in, you get into a much better state at that 90%. So it's the same thing with, if it's 90% ready to get out there, go for it. You'll learn on the way. You'll work on it on the way, and it's never going to be perfect. And then people will say, well, I procrastinate on purpose. I do better work when the buzzer's on the. No, you don't. There's a study that was done in Canada with thousands of people done throughout Canada. And I'm going to just assume that it's pretty much the same. People in Canada, pretty similar to the United States. 95% of people who procrastinated also rated much higher in stress levels and anxiety levels. So maybe you do better work under pressure and procrastinating, but you're also going to feel the effects of stress and anxiety, which nobody wants.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's good to be able to perform under pressure, but you shouldn't, willfully get to that pressure because you think that you'll perform better. Those things only happens once in a while, and then you don't crash like some people can't perform under pressure. They just fold. And, we're circling back to athletics, the people that are saying, oh, they choke, they can never win the big game, is because they can't take the pressure. So I understand that. But, circling back to perfectionists, I've worked with people who are perfectionists, and we call them type A personalities. And you're right, a perfectionist. And one of the lines that I love in a movie, 9.5 Weeks, I think it's called, with Sandra Bullock, and I'm not going to remember his name, but he told her, no one wants to live with a perfectionist. Because
Totally. Yeah. I love it that you bring up the Sandra Bullock. I'm telling you, she's great. Any Sandra Bullock chick flick, count me in. Like, it's like Hugh Grant. It's always like Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock.
Hugh Grant, right.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's exactly what he told her. And I've always remembered that. No one wants to live with a perfectionist, right?
So
but
funny.
and it's true. Nobody wants to live with a perfectionist. Nobody wants you, even a boss of a perfectionist. You might think that being a type A personality where everything needs to be perfect and you're a perfectionist. No, you're right. It's good to be that 90% and leave that 10%, open. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. So we've done pretty good. All right. So we've covered your 3 books. How can listeners connect with you, pick up a copy of your books, hire you as a coach?
Yeah, so I'm very easy to get in touch with on social media, David Nurse MBA, on pretty much all platforms. The books are anywhere. Books are found, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, davidnurse.com is my website. I run a really fun and powerful 1% growth team where we meet twice a month on a Zoom call. And we have a focus of 12 different focuses throughout the year, like the power of connecting and how to connect, how to find what your mission statement and your passion and purpose are, different, how to gain more time, just on down the line of the 12 most important success habits. So I do that, speak to companies. If you're listening and you have a company that you run or work for a company and want me to come speak, would love to and come meet you. That's what I'm most passionate about. But yeah, that's pretty much my podcast, The David Nurse Show, as well. You can find me. It's pretty easy to find.
Yes, I love it. David Nurse. It's a nice name too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I did. My brother's actually a doctor, so he is Dr. Nurse. How
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. A
yeah.
beautiful name. It rhymes and matches very, very well. Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So David, this has been an interesting conversation. Like I said, I love the mindset. I love the fact that we, highlighted, showcased some people that that their mindset has given them success. I love the connection to the bamboo tree because I just love that. That's my motivation, actually. When I think about it, of two of the things that motivates me is the thinking about the bamboo tree and thinking of that movie, Just Build It and They Will Come.
Yep. Field of Dreams in my home state
Field
of
of Dreams.
Iowa. Yep. I'm from Iowa.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, and then of course, perseverance, because a
Totally.
lot of people doesn't have that mindset to keep going, and
Yep.
we touched on Tyler Perry, but
Mm.
if anybody wants to know what it takes to keep going, listening to him talk about, he's putting on these shows and nobody was coming and he had to live in his car because he can't afford rent and put on the shows, but he kept doing it. How many would have continued doing that? Very, very few people,
Exactly.
because they tell you, go get a job. How many times you're sitting on the couch, you're broke, and you're trying to build a business, and people are saying, go get you a job with a paycheck. And you know that when you go get a job with a paycheck, your dreams are going to go down the toilet, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. The times that I've heard that and still hear that, and it's they they put that lie that you're gonna have so much security and safety, but it's just so close to not actually having that you're just thinking that you're finally, and then you're 30 years down the road and you're like, wow, I didn't try to achieve any of my dreams. And you become a statistic of there's 92% of people that have regret that they did not go for their dreams. 8%, only 8% actually achieve them.
It's true.
Mind blowing to me.
It's true. Because we've got that little period where it's hard. And because it's hard, you've got to get over that little hump. And that's basically what David has been teaching in his books. You talk about the little pivot, just a little turn, but these are things that will get you over to that hump when it's hard and you want to quit. So this is great, great conversation. Mindset goes in so many different ways. Mindset, one of the things that I know that's transformed my marriage and my relationships is change the way you look at a thing, and the thing you look at will change. That's again, that's again mindset, right? So it goes in so many different angles, whether it's perseverance because you believe in yourself, you have confidence that you can get there, like Steph Curry, or Tom Brady, or you're in a bad situation and you got to change your mindset and how you look at it. Yeah, mindset is great. And David is, he has got some pretty good books that will, all are on the same thing. Breakthrough will be exactly the same thing. I'm assuming that, yeah, you got to break through that ceiling that you put yourself on. It's a great conversation. I love it.
And you're amazing. You just have this great glow and an ambiance about you, Mary. It's fun to be around you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. All right. Well, you need to have that when someone is listening. You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
got to have the energy and the spark. Not everybody is watching on, on YouTube, but it has to come through the radio.
So you're so right. So right. And it's a great skill for people to it's if no one's ever heard about you or heard from you before, how are you going to impact them from that moment that's going to have some type of positive impact on them? And if you're just kind of monotone and you're negative, then you're just losing an opportunity to
Yes.
potentially transform somebody.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, listen, I love this conversation from the very go because this is my space. Thank you so much, David, for being on the show. I will have a transcript of my conversation with you on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. And of course, I'll link out to David's books. I will link out to his website. I will link out to his social media handles so that, you guys can all listen, learn, pick up a copy of his books. So, because even though I'm a mindset coach and even though that I'm in the space, trust me, you got to stay there. It's just like faith. Faith comes from hearing and hearing the word. I go to church and I listen to the word every Sunday because you never actually get to the ceiling unless you keep reinforcing it. So
that's the best advice right there. Best advice.
Yes. All right. So thank you. So David, as we wrap up, any last words?
I think I just would double down on what you just said there. There's a never I made it moment, in understanding that you will never make it to where the point you're like, everything is just fine and dandy. Is a great thing to know that it's always a constant learning, constant growing, and it's an exhilarating journey and challenge. And I've been around, I've got friends that are NBA champion coaches and NFL champion coaches, and they'll tell me that the time that they were at their lowest, which might seem crazy to some of you, is when they won the championship, because they thought that was going to fill them. I've been around gold medal winners who thought that was going to fill them. It will not fill you. It's the journey. And just like you hit on, it's the journey with a purpose. If you're doing what you do for yourself, you will be miserable. And for me, what gives me joy and gives me energy and gives me the ability to wake up every morning and know that I am on a bigger purpose is knowing that I have the love of Jesus covering me and that I'm doing everything to show people the glory of his kingdom. So that's what works for me. And that's what I'd leave people with.
That's beautiful. That gives me chills. I love that.
Why else are we here? We don't do this by ourselves. This doesn't just happen by happenstance. It's not the universe working in our favor. That's the biggest mumbo jumbo I ever hear.
Yes, I love it. Yes. And you're doing good work. Like I said, you're writing books, you're speaking, your courses, you've got your podcasts, and it's all to help, people to be successful by changing their mindset. And it works. It absolutely works. The mind, as we leave. So it's not only the mindset, but I'm soaking in books right now, Becoming Supernatural, with your mind and how you can use your mind to heal your body and all these different things. So the mind, there's a tagline from somewhere, I don't remember where it was, but it says the mind is a terrible thing to waste. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mind is a tool. People think we are our brains. The brain is just a small percentage of our body. We are a spirit. We are all mind and body. That's just a tool to be able to sharpen, to use, but you can absolutely heal. I mean, you should, if people haven't listened to Man's Search for Meaning, go listen to that. Viktor Frankl in a Holocaust camp, just the way he had his mindset, which he'll show you, that's how he survived. People can just die because they lose that sense of hope for a better tomorrow.
Yes, that's true. I haven't read his book, but I heard a lot of people referencing him. So maybe I'll make a note to pick it up on Audible. So that's great.
After do it, of course. After
do it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I will definitely, listen to Do It on Audible. That's how I consume my books when I'm doing my walk. So that's amazing. All right. Thank you, David, for being on the show. Thank you for this incredible conversation. Thank you for the work that you do for the kingdom, for everyone else. Thank you for being a partner in this work that we do to help people to transform their minds so that they can transform their lives. So thanks again for tuning in, you guys. Thank you, David, for being on the show. And as we wrap up, until next time, namaste.
Thanks so much, Myrna.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm gonna take a picture. Is that okay?
Yes.
Nice. That was awesome. That was so fun. That hour just flew by too.
I know, right? You were good. We had a good conversation. I absolutely loved it. Yes. So how it works is when the episode is live, I will send you a email that says your episode is now live, and it has have all the links. It will have when the TV show is coming, when the radio show is coming, a link to the show page, a link to the YouTube. I also do a couple of clips and I post on Facebook and Instagram and I tag you, and all I ask is for you to share it with your audience so that helps your interview go
Definitely.
bigger, but also helps the show grow. You know the deal.
Definitely. Let me know any way to promote it, all the shares, that kind of stuff. And I'll email you my number so you can put my number in. And
Okay.
if there's anything that ever comes to your mind of like, maybe David can help me with this, or maybe he knows this person, don't hesitate to reach out. Man, you're doing great things for the kingdom. So anything that I can do to help you only helps everybody else. So
Yes,
please,
I
I need that from
appreciate
the
it.
bottom of my heart.
All right. Thanks again. And
Awesome.
stay blessed.
You too. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.